Let's listen to some of this. Phil Weiser. Phil Weiser, the Attorney General, the incumbent Democratic Attorney General, Phil Weiser, was facing off against Republican challenger and 18th Judicial District Attorney John Kellner.
Area, somebody who's a criminal prosecutor, and your opponent has deep experience here? Sure. So, just to be really clear, I don't want to discount the fact that I've served 15 years in the Marine Corps as a judge advocate, as a lawyer, and had varied experience across all different levels. One of those things was actually advocating for service members in consumer fraud cases and predatory lending cases. I come to this with a great deal of experience, not just my criminal justice experience. Mr. Kellner, thank you. Mr. Weiser, concerns about the proposed merger of the parent companies of Kings and Safeway, and an area where you would like to see your office be even more aggressive on antitrust? I respect my opponent's background and experience, and I think it's being put to really good use right now as a criminal prosecutor. That's what his background. The Attorney General does not prosecute car thefts, but the Attorney General does address mergers.
So there's Phil Weiser saying he knows how to understand the big picture. He can address mergers. He's not just some low-level criminal DA prosecutor. He's the state attorney general. He can do the big things. So I got some notes here, and I just want to write off some of this. Most likely, Phil Weiser is going to win. Jared Polis and Phil Weiser have done a kick-ass job. Phil Weiser seems to, here in the San Luis Valley, because of the whole Alonzo Payne debacle, Phil Weiser has really came in here and stamped down what the victims' rights are. Like, you need to care about victims' rights, correct? I mean, are we not Americans? I mean, what is the point of having this big old, $1 million judges and $1 million cops and $1 million jails if we don't get a penny's worth of justice? So we have John Kellner, who is running against Phil Weiser. John Kellner is the Republican. Phil Weiser is the Democrat. The Democrats seem to be up by 20-something points. The democracy seems to be good. If Democrats vote, if indication here, Conejos County, there's corruption. And Conejos County, they've stopped one Democrat from voting, and they probably have registered, a dozen Republicans that live in an RV. So you have one Democrat who owns, property. There's permanency, and then there's doesn't. Anyways, if Conejos County is any example of what might happen, then it's not going to be good for Democrats. But the polls are saying they're doing great. It's a blue state, and we're like rich. We're like fucking kicking ass when it comes to making money. He just sent out $500 checks, and he's changed a whole bunch of fucking shit, a whole bunch of things. I don't know if people are paying attention, if they're making their head spin. Daylight savings, I ain't give a fuck about that, but that's, you don't have to worry about if up an hour, down an hour every year. That's something even the plebes, even the most simpleton of the plebes could understand. So I think Phil Weiser has it in the bag. I think the debate is actually fantastic. He's likable. So's Jared Polis. And Jared Polis and Phil Weiser need to keep on working together. So John Kellner seems like he's all polished and, poised and whatnot, but it just doesn't have that dynamism, right? I mean, he's got, I like it. It's a smart, intellectual conversation that they were talking about, and John Kellner pointed out a lot of good things. So hopefully John Kellner, whether you win or lose, it's about the policies, and hopefully John Kellner makes Phil Weiser think about some of the policies he has been passing. So Phil Weiser said that John Kellner's background as a judge advocate in Marine Corps is perfect for doing the job. He's currently doing criminal prosecution, but not the mergers. And then Phil Weiser is going to list off all of these mergers that he's confronted.
Have in the past addressed mergers, including one in Colorado Springs, where elderly Coloradans are going to have to pay more for their Medicare Advantage plans, more for health care. We took action in that merger. There was a merger in Grand Junction involving outdoor retailer stores. We took action there and stopped it. As for this merger, I do worry for consumers, for workers, and for competitors. I've got long experience enforcing antitrust laws. I'm a nationwide leader on this. In fact, I'm the nationwide leader for the states suing Google for their antitrust violations. I'm concerned about too much consolidation, squeezing consumers, and I fought for consumers and brought $230 million back. Thank you, Mr. Weiser. We've had some impromptu back and forth. Now let's have the purposeful back and forth. Mr. Kellner, you have a question?
No. The purposeful John Kellner told Phil Weiser to call a special session. Phil Weiser said no. Felonies versus misdemeanors. One of the conversations I thought was pretty fascinating was this. Phil Weiser apparently had supported a bill that raised the limit of the value of the car $500, which was set in 1999, to the minimum being up to $2,000. The difference between a misdemeanor car theft and a felony car theft is, did you steal a $2,000 or more car? If you stole a $1,900 or less car, well, that's just a misdemeanor. What, that car was only $1,000? You stole that $1,000 car. That's just a misdemeanor. Nah, that's just a day in jail. Nah, get on in there, a day in jail, and come right back on out. Phil Weiser's actually pretending or trying to say, I think it's politics, but he's saying it doesn't have anything to do with the rise in car thefts. Car thefts are happening all across the state. There is a rise in crime, violent crime, car thefts. John Keller's pushing, draconian measures for car thieves, but also drug dealers too. Which, you know what? Yeah, fuck drug dealers. Now that marijuana is legal, we don't need the other fucking drugs. If you want to legalize something else, then get it fucking on the ballot, motherfuckers. I'm sick of the bullshit. We got marijuana legalized. We're doing good. You don't need to fucking goddamn protect a bunch of junkies. That being said, we should try to pick one hard drug to possibly legalize. So let's see. Phil Weiser said that doesn't do anything, but it does. I've been driving like $2,000 cars and less my whole fucking life. There's a sticker machine in Florida. When I was 18 or 19, there was a spring break. I was in college. Just got out of Kentucky. I was in Cincinnati. Anyways, we go to Florida. We take a sticker machine. They wind up saying that it costs $300. A fucking sticker machine, like you put a quarter in and you get the thing. $300 machine. Come on. That steel isn't that... Is it goddamn stainless steel? What is that? That's not... But that was like $300. Maybe. But they were trying to say that's grand theft, grand larceny theft. Larceny, is that theft? But steal a $1,900 car, and that's okay? Take a fucking sticker machine, that's grand fucking theft. But take a $1,900 car, and that's okay? That's just a fucking misdemeanor? That's such bullshit. Fire a couple warning shots in defense of home, person, and property, and that's a suspected felony charge. Suspected felony menacing. Yet straight up rob somebody of their fucking vehicle? And if it's less than $1,900, it's just a fucking misdemeanor? Fucking insane. How does that not make it worse? That makes it so much fucking worse, and that is right up your alley. Change the fucking law, motherfucker. That's a terrible law. That is a terrible law. Inflation's a bitch, okay? And who knows how much money he's making. But keep it at $500. Keep it at $500. That's a misdemeanor. Even then, that's a misdemeanor. You stole $500 worth of car. Who the hell can steal a car? I mean, for $500, it's not running, so you have a tow truck? Fuck this shit. Fuck this shit. This is, some petty thieves but this is big timers, right? And if you're allowing the big timers to take $500, $1,000, $1,500 cars, $1,900 cars. So, I think they're still out there used on Craigslist. You could probably get a decent $1,500 car. But it's also super duper regressive as fuck. You're supposed to be the Democrats. You're supposed to be the progressive party. That means poor folks with poor cars are more vulnerable. The vulnerable who have vulnerable cars, the vulnerable people who have vulnerable cars have increased the vulnerability of now getting their fucking cars stolen. Fucking shit. They're the fucking security guards. They're the ones flipping our burgers. They're the janitors. They're driving their poor shit vehicles. And because they leave their house and go over here and then go there and then have to leave and then the cars and lock and they're more vulnerable. And now they have a poor car. So now they are going to get... For a thief, they'll look at them as an easy lick. That's an easy lick. Just take their $1,500 car. It's just a misdemeanor, even if you get caught. Hell, just slowly take it away from him. Hell, just walk up to him and take his key. Don't even have a... So, yeah, that's going to increase the fucking stolen cars. How's that not going to increase the stolen cars? And that's, God Goddamn criminals will figure out the justice system, pretty quick. They'll see what the DAs are allowing, what they're not allowing. So it's like, okay, took this $1,900 car. That new law says it's just a misdemeanor, right? Okay, well, shit. I guess I get bailed out tomorrow. I guess one thing about it being a misdemeanor, they don't get a preliminary hearing. It makes poor folks with the pores even more vulnerable than what they already were. So shit. Fucking shit. So he's not correct on that. I still want Phil Weiser to win. Just think about lowering that threshold. John Kellner says he's pro-public safety. He's anti-violent crime. He says it is ultimately the Attorney General's responsibility. He is correct on that. He's the head law enforcer. If anything, I don't think you can arrest the DA because they're like the legal stamp of approval for the cops. The cops nab them, the DA slabs them. So cops can't just be nabbing anybody and everybody unless the DA slabs them. And the Attorney General is just like that with, the fucking whole government, with the governor and with the legislative branch and with the goddamn fucking Supreme Court. So he's like the DA of the whole state. He's the head DA. Now he's also talking about protecting consumer rights and reproductive rights, protecting air, land, and water. He's saying that the top two nexus crimes, car thieves and drug dealers. This is John Kellner. The top two nexus crimes. So drug dealers and car thieves, it's not just those crimes, but they also are, associated with 20 other fucking crimes. The top two nexus crimes, car thieves and drug dealers. And what you have is Phil Weiser sitting there saying he got 60 out of 62. So he's saying that he increased the penalties for a lot of things. But apparently you can get your gun back if you're a car thief or drug dealer or something. I don't know. But he's saying, look, we increased, 60 crimes to something. And just because we didn't do it for the drug dealers and car thieves, what do you want me to do, guy? Shit, I'm only one man here. I can only do so much. Again, I want Phil Weiser to win. But pay attention to that. Car thieves and drug dealers, add that to the fucking list. Try to get that to the list in the next legislature. Say you'll introduce a bill. That's how you take away his thunder. Just say, okay, I'll introduce a bill about, I think that's a good idea. Car thieves, drug dealers, we don't want that shit. Marijuana is legal here. Colorado is the city on a hill. We got to make sure we do our shit right here. On abortion, John Kellner apparently privately doesn't agree on abortion, but he's going to support the state law. Phil Weiser bragged about the red flag laws. And is that everything? John Kellner said that convicted felons, car thieves, can possess guns again. Convicted felons can possess guns again. Which, if you've done your time, probably, right? But I guess he's trying to say there's some crimes that you just never get your gun back no matter what. And so he wanted to add a couple things to that list. And Phil Weiser was like, everybody else in the legislature. So he's trying to say, well, bipartisan. He's kind of hiding behind the legislature there in a little bit. But if it was bipartisan, then he's got a good point. He's supposed to stand up against the whole legislature. And maybe he should. John Kellner, his background as judge advocate in the Marine Corps is perfect for doing the job he is currently doing. So he was a judge advocate, was 15 years in the Marine Corps as a judge advocate, I think is what he said. He's a Republican. He's a Marine Corps. NRA supports him. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Sure, Mr. Weiser, as we talked about earlier, you supported a bill that made it a misdemeanor to steal cars valued at $2,000 or less when it used to be a felony. You supported a bill that has allowed convicted felons, including drug dealers and car thieves, to possess guns again. Will you join me right now in calling upon the governor to call a special session to bring the legislators back under the Gold Dome to solve some of these public safety crises that we have in our state?
John, I want to start with the facts, and I've already mentioned what they are. That bill you're talking about moved the limit from 500, which was set in 1999, up to 2,000. I want to change it, but to say it's causing car thefts is just being deceptive to people. Let's be straight with people. I've also talked about the bill that firearms got 60 of them as felons can't possess them. I couldn't get the final two. We'll work on getting those. We can work the right way together, honestly, to solve problems. These deceptive attacks, they're not helpful, and they're not how we do business in Colorado. I am a collaborative problem solver. That's why my Republican predecessor, Cynthia Kaufman's, endorsed me. That hasn't happened too often. It happened here because of my approach.